All right, welcome to the Shadow the Scrib podcast. I'm your host, Jared May, and Merry Christmas to all. It's December 1st. We've got exciting news. We got a new contributor. There's a new face in the show. Introducing Turner Aune. Welcome to the show, brother. It's an honor to have you. How you feel? You getting the jitters out? Anything you want to say before we get started? Or a lot of hot topics to cover today?
Nah, I'm in, Ram. I'm all in. I'm excited for the opportunity. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm looking forward to the future for all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, it was funny. It was like, we just got through visiting one another for Thanksgiving, watching the Texas and the Texas A&M game, and I was like, how do I keep this a secret for as long as because I told you at the beginning of the year when we had the planned trip, I was like, hey, I'm bringing a surprise for you guys, and so I don't know did you guys know what it was, or did y'all talk about it, you and Chad?
I think we had a prediction because obviously, I think me and you usually talk ball offline. We'll probably just sit on the Xbox or even just text back and forth, just me and you individually. And I remember you mentioning something about me being a contributor and Chad being a contributor because obviously we have this college game day group chat that we go back and forth all day, every single day. Literally I'll have my girlfriend just be like, well, y'all talk all the time, but y'all not have anything else to talk about. We just talk ball. That's all we know. That's all we know how to do.
We talk ball. Then the other one is, who's getting on tonight if we're playing Xbox, because we're all got, we need time to dull our brains. But quick shout out to the socials real quick. This is your first time listening. Welcome in. This is championship week. We'll be evaluating the STS poll week 15. But on top of that, like I said, if you're a first time listener, hit the subscribe button on the bottom on YouTube. Doesn't cost you a cent. We don't ask for anything. All we ask is you listen to the episode, tune in, and give us some discourse in the comments. You can find us at Shadow the Scrib on YouTube. You can listen or watch on Apple Podcast and Spotify, searching Shadow the Scrib as well. Then the links are in each of our profiles. That way you can identify the rest of our socials, such as TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. You can search Shadow the Scrib on those as well, and you can find the beautiful golden logo. But like I said, Merry Christmas to you guys. We got a ton to cover. Just to kind of outline it before we get started, we're first covering the STS poll. We're going to focus on teams 16 through 1. It's mainly the ones worth talking about that are in contention for the college football playoffs. So me and Turner will be giving analysis on that. And then Chad Aune is also a new guest to the show, a new contributor to the show. He's busy today, so we'll be incorporating his takes within each segment. But you'll see him appear on a later episode in December, and we'll make sure to get him on. But we're super excited to have him as well. And then moving on to segment 2, we'll be talking about the Lane Kiffin, the coaching carousel, the SEC coaches that have been hired, the Lane Kiffin exit from Ole Miss into LSU. What does that mean for Ole Miss heading into the playoffs? And then wrapping it up, the college football playoff selections and the predictions for the championship games. There's a lot. So
it's
Turner,
a lot.
You're entering into one hell of an episode, dude.
I'm ready, dude. Just let it cook, bro. Let it cook.
I'll give you a quick intro, though. That way, people kind of understand a little bit who you are. And if I'm wrong on anything, you can always correct me. But, you played a little bit of ball for a year or two at San Angelo State. You attended University of North Texas.
Yep, go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green's a perfect time to come onto the podcast, as well as North Texas is usurping the college football playoffs. We were joking with you. I was like, should we get tickets, or we go to a game? Do you get alumni pass, or do you get an alumni pass?
Answer is no.
Damn it.
Do you want to be a contributor? That's what? I don't even know how much they usually ask to contribute, but it's one of those things where you sit down, let's be honest, UNT is not really a ball, go to school to watch ball. It's more of just a commuter school, just you want to get your degree and be local in the area, and it's way more affordable than a lot of other universities. That's where you need to go. And so that's what I did.
It was funny as we figured that out when they did a college game day skit over there, and it was just it was kind of a bunch of nerds.
It is a bunch of nerds, aka me. I'm an accountant, dude. You think I'm around the cool kids a lot? Nah, dude. I do my own thing.
And so with that being said, so we got San Angelo State, North Texas. And then, like you mentioned, the college game day chat for the last 2 years, 98% of that chat is presenting the news, talking ball about college football, the rankings, whether or not the committee's right or wrong, how would we format the playoffs, conference realignment ideas. I mean, anything under the sun related to college football. And it really, for the audience, that group chat really influenced the niche of this podcast. That really shifted the direction from NFL to college football, because you'll see, with me and Turner on this episode and Chad on the upcoming ones and the rest of the contributors, we have so much fun talking about college football. Much fun.
Oh, literally, we had you out last weekend, and there were literally times where we probably could have done a podcast with what we were just talking about, just sitting around the fire.
Yeah.
We talked about it for 3 hours. We talked about the conspiracies all with is Lane Kiffin going to go to Florida or LSU? Or, hey, there's be a lot of stuff that we already covered in this episode that we've talked in previous engagements. So it's exciting. But now, literally, college game day chat, we've been talking that for like you said, a couple years now. Yeah. And when you ever you'll send over your poll, like, hey guys, does this look good? And we'll be like, hey, here's a couple tweaks that I would do. This week's I think is pretty accurate, because like you said, 1 through 15 is really all that matters. And then 16 through 25 is like, oh, you get a bowl game. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Congratulations. Here's your cookie.
That's pretty much how it is.
Yeah. So, and then the last thing I'll say about it is, about you and our relationship, obviously best friends, but we ran a podcast that had technical difficulties. So it was one of the guest podcasts that me and you and Chad had, and it was great. The content was freaking there. And I got through it all, and that's not the first time that's happened to you. The challenge the script when you appeared on the college game day matchups on NCAA 25. We had the matchup of our. Now's your time to say it. We had the matchup of a lifetime.
I can validate. I was there. I would know. I'm not very good at NCAA 25. I'm not. You can be like, oh, well, he doesn't know ball if he doesn't know how to run an offense. But I'm definitely not that caliber of a fan. I can obviously read a defense or know who to block and all this other stuff, but actually having a play call and do other things, I just can't do it. So when we had that one game and you were saying this is really good, I'm really glad how this turned out. We had some crazy moments, some that were just especially for me. And in the fact it was high scoring, entertaining all the way through. I did an onside kick to keep due for the content. I didn't get it, but I almost got it. It was so much fun. And then literally,
it was tipped.
And he texted me the next day saying hey,
we got to redo this shit.
You got to do the entire thing again. Your mic cut out. I'm like, you're pooping me, bro. You got to.
Yeah, it was brutal.
It was brutal, but it's still fun. I still had a lot of fun doing all those little segments with you. Wacky Inflatable 2, man, is where we're all originated, man. I used to be your most viewed episode for a little while there, and then obviously you had to grow a little bit, so I'm a little salty, but it's all right.
Yeah, you get plenty of opportunities going forward. That's
for sure.
Yeah, because you were I remember looking at it, I said, damn. Do people like Turner more than me? I was like, I'm getting a little jealous / salty. I'm like, this dude's been on the show one time and he's got more views than I ever got. And so I was like, I got to get this guy on. Apparently this guy's entertaining.
Yeah, clearly.
So
here we are.
Let's move on to that's a great intro, by the way.
For sure.
Let's get into the STS poll and get right into the nooks and crannies of it all, as I'd like to say.
Let's get it.
And so one of the things that we were talking about off script is I'm going to move my mouse over here. It's there's a mouse in the way. Is one of the things we were talking about in the week 15 rankings was, we got the just outside of the script, congratulations, you're in the AP top 40 or whatever. But then where it really starts to matter is, and I was one number off, is 17 through number 1. And so for those that are listening to the show, I kind of outline, just outside the script, you got a lot of 8 and 4 teams like Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, and then UNLV kind of just found their way in there, leading the Mountain West Conference at 10-2 with Dan Mullings as the as a head coach. They're playing Boise State in that championship game. So a couple teams that had some pretty decent seasons, maybe got injury riddled, maybe lost some close ones like Illinois or Iowa did. And then you enter the top 25. And I think, and you've been keeping up with the poll just a little bit, like I would imagine. I mean, I send it to you almost every week, but wouldn't you agree that like Houston has been in and out of this thing like he's doing missionary? Like Houston has been in this poll like 7 times and out of it 7 times. I mean, that's got to be a world record.
Yeah, I mean, in and out 7 or 8 times. That's how much I. Never mind. I'm not going to go for this.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
No, but like, I mean, you've gone through 20 through 25 throughout the entirety of the times you've been doing the STS rankings. Has been a, you know, like you said, a carousel. Play the music, da 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 da. Like just literally, everybody's going in and out. I mean, Tulane's been in and out of there. Navy's been in and out of there. I think Arizona was in there at one point. Houston for sure. I mean, the moment you put UNT in the top 25, I was like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, and this is not a real world. Right?
No, for sure. I mean, like I said, my older brother played for UNT. And this is the time where they were maybe 7-5, 8-4 at best. And so the fact that we're talking about them being, 11-1, going to a conference champion and possibly in a college football playoff is kind of nuts. So, I mean, like you said before, technically 20 through 25 or 18 through 25, you're like, hey, slap you on the ass and just say, hey, get back out there.
But, great season.
Yeah.
Well, now's an opportunity to, like, I would say, drop the nugget about your oldest brother. He had a cool stat line and was talked about a little bit in his final year of college football. It was his age, correct?
For sure. He was one of the oldest quarterbacks to play in the FBS. I think he was around 29, almost 30. And the fact he was playing as an elite level, I mean, granted, I don't really think the offense that he had was as efficient as the offense they have now, but I mean, he still balled out. I'm so proud of him to have, that accomplishment, and just kind of think to myself, like, dang, he took all the athletic ability. He's doing this at 30.
Does that mean I can go back? I still have 5 years eligibility. I should.
Are you saying I could go back and play linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
but
Diego,
anyway.
Yeah, Diego Pavia to the max.
He's my age, so it makes sense.
Yeah, dude, that's nuts, by the way. Number 24 is Navy. And like we mentioned, they've come in and out. 23 is Georgia Tech. I feel like a disservice to unrank them. I know they lost their last couple. They had a very strong 9-0, 9-1 type season. And then, you're playing Georgia at the end of the year. It's like, okay, we kind of figured you were going to lose that one, but they played them close. So, the AP poll might unrank them. I think they had them at 25 or something. But I figured it was appropriate to keep them in, and they only dropped 3 spots. And then Tulane, they've been just outside of the script, but they just lost their head coach. I believe he's going to continue coaching the rest of the college football playoffs. From what we have read so far, that's another portion of the coaching carousel. We'll get into it a later portion in the episode. But that's John Summerall. And then number 21 is Arizona. I had them ranked a little too high last week, so I made an audible there. And shout out to the TikTok guys that were contributing to the discourse, saying, why is Arizona up? So you know what? That's a great question, Timothy. So number 20, the Sun Belt leader, 11-1, JMU. Number 19, Michigan, right behind USC, who won the head-to-head. At number 18, the Trojans at USC. So
makes sense.
That kind of puts us in to the nitty-gritty and being at 17 through 1. And so we kind of want to format this in a way. I think we should do it categorically, to where it's like, okay, we got a couple of these Group 5 teams. We got a couple of these ACC teams. We have a terrible ACC matchup coming up, and then we're gonna talk a lot about Texas in this one. We need to talk a lot about Miami and Notre Dame head to head, and then you got the outlier being Utah, sitting there at number 13, and Vanderbilt. You're like, well, what do you do with them? They've had phenomenal seasons. So we'll start with the Group of 5 team. Start with UNT, and I just want to discuss, hey, how do you fare with when you're looking at North Texas, you're like, okay, they're the Mean Green. This isn't necessarily a football school, but at the same time, you kind of have to honor the record. You have to honor the conference. And with the ACC being lackluster, in my opinion, you're like, oh, could they possibly take control over that playoff bid? But what have you seen from North Texas on your end? And how I know the committee has been handling it the best way that they know how. But do you find a place for North Texas in the playoff bid if they win their championship, or do you think they're going to be a team that's like left out?
Based on what the committee has done with this year's 12-team college football playoff bracket, is obviously the top 5 champions for each conference with the highest ranks should obviously get in. Now, obviously, they're talking about these group of 5 teams getting in, which I kind of disagree with, and because of the funding, the resources, and everything else. They don't really have the players. I mean, look at UNT's quarterback, 0-star, didn't even play, high school football. But I mean, he's balling out. I can't deny that what he's doing is spectacular. But at the same time, like, you got to think of, like, okay, 0-star versus, let's say they get the 12th seed, and guess who they play? Number 5 seed, which could potentially be an A&M, an Ole Miss, or an Oregon. And we'll just kind of see how they fare up against that. But I would say UNT is my favorite to go into the college football playoff, possibly get the 11 or 12 seed. And I don't know. I'm kind of surprised. I hope that everything goes great for how they respond in the championship game. But I mean, we'll just have to kind of just wait later and see with the championships next week.
Yeah. Of course, that's the priority number one is beating Tulane, and Tulane might be out the door with John Summerall leaving for Florida. And he's done a phenomenal job with Tulane. I know he came from, I want to say it was actually had it on the thing earlier, but he had a good track record from where he came from. We'll get into that later in the episode, but like fire the high school head coach that had the 0-star guy, and never played him a down. Like, this dude is making next level NFL Sunday type throws. And, and people might talk about the competition in the record. And it's like, well, you got teams like Navy in the same conference who are playing up against Notre Dame every single year. You got Tulane, who played, I want to say it was Ole Miss earlier in the year. North Texas has played some pretty tough opponents. Even JMU played Washington State. So, like, they're playing within their conference, but they're not cupcake for the budget that they're having to deal with. These are probably, $1 million to $5 million budgets, I would guess, to the max. $5 million is probably stretching it. But
yeah, I would agree.
You take that budget and compare it to, like you said, a 5th seed being Oregon, Texas, A&M, or Ole Miss, and you're like, well, their budgets are 20 to 25 or so. Like, they're not going to have the depth to compete. And it's like, yeah, it's great. We want to put an auto bid in there for these conference championship winners, but at the same time, how are we going to respect the fact that, hey, these guys are not able to compete with these larger brand schools, these premium brand and premium conferences. And so, yes, that is by rule what the committee is supposed to do. And yes, by rule, like, a G5 team must get a bid if they're like a super high rank. But simultaneously, let's use common sense and logic here. They've had a great season, like you said, pat on the ass, great season, see you next year. And which is why, I proposed a G5, like BCS national championship format, to where it's like, okay, yeah, I understand you guys had a great season. You guys think you can compete with the best of them, but your budget tells otherwise. Your budget tells you you're a AAA school. And that's fine. That's just the way it goes. But at the same time, like, we gotta put these guys back in their own category out of respect for them, not in disrespect. And so I do. We're all gonna see that's a cupcake. You don't want somebody in the college football playoff to get, and again, no disrespect to North Texas, but like a cupcake win and then go play a team that has a first round bye the following week. Because then it's tough to evaluate, were they a playoff team? Because if you played somebody like, well, I don't know, the first 4 out might be Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, Utah, Miami, Texas, those types team or BYU, are they going to beat any of those teams either? No, like those teams might also deserve a spot in the college football playoff over a team like North Texas. Would you agree?
I mean, I would agree in the sense it's like, you already said that JMU played Washington State, and I think they barely beat them, if I remember correctly. But UNT beat them by like 50. And then Washington State also, barely lost to Ole Miss. So technically, a lot of things can happen. Chaos is definitely still on the table for whatever is being thrown our way. So I'm just gonna let it ride, see what happens. But I do like UNT as the last slot.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out. And then, we can talk a little bit about Virginia, at number 16. Virginia obviously has placed itself at 10-2 atop of the ACC. They're going to be appearing in the ACC championship against a 7-5 Duke team. With their starting quarterback, I think they lost to Wake Forest 9-16. They barely escaped somebody else like 12-13. They've had some hiccups along the road where they would have been gone, and then Miami would have taken the place of Virginia in this one, or it would have been Miami and Virginia in the actual ACC championship. And I struggle with understanding how a 7-5 team can get in. We can talk about that when we get to the predictions.
For sure.
Virginia, to me, and I've watched probably half their games, I would say, they're not a publicly televised team as such as like, we're not going to want to say, let's turn on Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you say that you watched all their games and you're a public podcast that analyzes the sport, you're lying. You did not watch Virginia play. Let's just be straight up about that. You ain't watching Virginia play. Maybe if they're on a Friday night, you have nothing else to do, but they didn't have a lot of Friday night games. And so with that being said, they're tough to evaluate because, their record states 10-2, but are they truly a playoff team? Are they narrowly escaped some sub-tier opponents within their own conference? And so you compare that with those other teams that I mentioned. It's like, it seems a bit unfair again to say, all right, well, I guess one of these teams has to get in. If Virginia wins the ACC conference championship, then they're probably going to be placed within the 10th or 11th seed or 12th. More than likely, if the G5 team gets in and then it's Virginia, I would say ACC and G5 are towards the back. So, but anyway, I would say like what they would play like a 6th or 7th seed. Great. I was hoping to escape that.
I mean, I hate myself for it too, but I don't promote degeneracy like you say, but like, come on, like sometimes it's just funny.
Yeah. Damn it. So 6th, 7th seed or whatever. Yeah. Like, that's going to be Texas A&M or, Oklahoma or Ole Miss or possibly Alabama, depending on if they win the SEC championship or not, or if they win, maybe Georgia flies back. They shouldn't be penalized for something like that, but, we'll see. But I think whatever team that ends up being, I think they whip Virginia's ass.
I would have to agree. Now, granted, I think there was some controversy with who they played at the beginning of the year. If I remember correctly, they lost to NC State, but it did not count as a conference game. I believe this was Virginia. And so this is kind of where, like, okay, well, they had a conference out of conference game ? So I don't know how that all comes in there. But then again, the ACC is also just so crowded. I mean, they have teams from the West Coast playing in the East Coast. I mean, we got Stanford and Cal, and then some other teams that are just kind of like, dude, do they even belong here? So I mean, and they haven't played Miami. I don't think Virginia even played Louisville. So it's like they haven't really played the harder portions of the ACC schedule to really I mean, it's hard for me to validate that. Now, granted, you can argue with that with all the other conferences as well, but I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel.
Here's some nuggets. Like, you're correct about the North Carolina State in week 2. They lost 31-35. They did play Louisville in week 6 and they won that game 30-27. But then at the same time, they went to the bye week in week 7 and they played in the week 8 at home, Washington State, and won 22-20. JMU beat Washington State. Ole Miss almost lost to Washington State. You know, UNT. I think you said UNT. Did they beat the brakes off of you?
Yeah, it was like
State?
50. It was like 59-10.
That's a head-to-head when you get in the college football playoffs. Like we might put the G5 team ahead of Virginia.
It could be a possibility. I mean, if Virginia, let's say Virginia does win against Duke, what kind of win does that mean?
Yeah,
Realistically,
and they played Duke on the road and won 34-17.
Yeah, I mean, I would take it. To be honest with you, I'd take a UNT win over Tulane over a Virginia win over Duke.
And then before we get into Texas, I actually I saw this online on X. I thought I was going to pose this to me and you. I was like, I saw, this week obviously is the championship week. We got to play all the conference championship weeks. Well, then there's some that are left out, such as, like I've mentioned before, BYU, Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, Utah, and Miami, kind of sitting in that category of, are we going to be the first four out? What kind of ticket are we going to get? And Texas, too. Texas should be considered in that as well.
For sure.
And somebody was saying they should do a play-in game, like a wild card game for championship week, where it's like, okay, these guys are y'all got to go battle it out. There's a lot of debate right now. Who's better? Should we do the matchup between head-to-head between Notre Dame and Miami? Okay, settle it on the field again, in a wild card game. Vanderbilt and Utah and Texas, it's like, and BYU. It's like, okay, BYU already beat Utah. Okay, let's see what Utah can do against Vanderbilt. Let's see what Texas can do against the Big 12 and BYU. Play it in. Find an easier way to determine which teams belong, and then the next week's going to be Army Navy. You're not going to be you're playing an extra game, but you're not going to be like just ultra exhausted. You're going to have a 2 weeks rest before you get to the playoff selection, and from there you kind of have your problem solved. So I thought that was a phenomenal idea.
I'm still like kind of iffy about it, mainly because it's the week after rivalry week. Now it would be like another game on the schedule that would be very, very tough. However, I could definitely see both sides where just like, hey, if these teams win, but how would you, if there's these 5 teams, right? Would you just do those 2 and then the one above that? Because technically the top 10 should already be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, what's interesting is the top 10 should be already in, but and they don't go off my list, but like BYU's sitting there, but they're also considerably on the way out that I've seen on certain ones. It's like, okay, they're part of that group where they could be excluded. I don't believe that should happen, but then, cause you also have to think Virginia, North Texas, and Tulane could be thrown in there because they're not going to put Duke in. If Duke wins the ACC championship, they should remove that and put JMU in. I'd rather see that.
For sure.
Not going to go well, but
I mean, we can talk more about that when we actually do like CFP predictions, but I mean, that's definitely worst case scenario, especially for the ACC, because that means no ACC team is in at all.
Or just scrap that ACC in general, as well as JMU, and throw Miami in and Notre Dame. Like, free the space yourself. You're like, okay, we have no interest in the ACC this year. You guys couldn't figure it out. Best of luck to you guys next year. Miami, I know they missed the ACC championship. You guys are 10-2. You beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame, you won 10 games straight. You guys are both in. How about you guys play each other the first week? It's like, so that's a little bit of a matchup here. So, yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. They're not going to do a single one, but there's a lot of cool possibilities.
Agreed. I mean, there's just so, like you said.
They're not going to listen to
us. Unless, no, I mean.
Maybe. You get 6 or 7 of the committee.
All right, dude. Now you're just throwing it out the window. Now I'm going to get off.
Okay, so now the big one. This is where you can have your moment. The hot mic, if you want to call it that. So Texas, number 15 on the STS poll, coming off a big time victory against Texas A&M at home, 27-17. You can argue it was a dominating victory. And then, like, if it were you. And you probably, I know your opinion on it, but act like I don't know. But if it were you, make the case, in your opinion, for Texas to get in the playoffs, or make the case for your reasons for why Texas should not be included in the playoffs, because you know this team like the back of your hand.
Unfortunately, this is my team. I know I went to UNT, so I'm a T-shirt fan. I guess you want to call it that. Whatever. Um, uh, we,
We
but essentially, I'm a realist at the end of the day. I really don't think that Texas should be in. And I think everybody, there's not really a shadow of the script take here because everybody kind of agrees that you don't really put a 3-loss team in no matter how bad the losses are. So obviously they had a loss against Ohio State. Usually that's pretty, like, that's valid. I would say that's a pretty valid loss. And then obviously they had a loss against Florida. That one kind of sucks too. In reality, I mean, they played at Florida, who was a pre-AP top 10, I'm pretty sure. So
Yep.
technically you can kind of make an argument there. But then they got just boat raced by freaking Georgia. I mean, it was not even, it was a night and day difference.
Yeah.
So realistically, if you want to say that they're a playoff caliber team, like, okay, well then play good against the playoff caliber teams as well. I mean, you barely could beat a Mississippi State team who didn't even hasn't won a SEC game at that point, and barely beat Kentucky, who has no offense, can't figure that stuff out. I mean, there's just so many things that could go wrong. Now you have good wins against Vanderbilt, OU, and obviously Texas A&M. And at those points, they were pretty high. I'm pretty sure AP polls up, all of them were top 12. Obviously, A&M was at 3 at that point, but realistically, you had to think about the losses too. I mean, that's kind of the argument for Notre Dame as well. Like, hey, your losses are like not bad, but your wins aren't that great either. So it's just there's so many things that you can kind of put variables into and just stick it into the equation. But long story short, I love my Longhorns. I do have like faith that they can figure it out, and I could talk another 15 minutes about my horns about what I think works, what doesn't work. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they don't deserve to get in.
Yeah, and you know, and I know I'm an Aggie, but I do tend to agree with that. But I do think Sarkisian has made some really promising points, and focusing in on, hey, why are we playing this non-conference game versus the number one team in the country, Ohio State, on the road, if we're just going to look at record at the end of the day? You know, and yes, it was a one possession loss, and a great comparison you made between, you know, Notre Dame being okay. Yeah, they had a combined 4 points in those two losses to Texas A&M and Miami, and who's the better team now? You know, well, they won 10 straight. So okay, well, you played USC and Pittsburgh. That was the only two teams you had left on your schedule that were worth the crap. And Pittsburgh wasn't supposed to be as good as they were, as Miami showed in the final week. And so with Texas, you know, Sarkisian saying, hey, look, we're 9-3. We beat 3 of the top 10 teams in the country. We play a really tough schedule. We played a non-conference game. We lost by a possession on the road first week of the season. That's a very tough thing to do. Yes, we did lose to Florida, and then as you mentioned, they're a top 15, top 10 preseason AP team. They were a favorite for DJ Lagway to win the Heisman. However, did not perform in those games. And what I think Sarkisian is missing is, and you can't, for a coach, I don't blame him at all for what it's his job to say, hey, we deserve a ticket. Marcus
Agreed.
Freeman's doing it. The head coach for Vanderbilt is doing it. Oklahoma is doing it. Everyone's doing it, saying we deserve a ticket because that's their job. They're not going to say we don't deserve to be in. No one's going to say that. But in my opinion, from an outside source looking in, Sarkisian is missing the fact that Kentucky on the road was an abysmal football game. Your quarterback severely struggled. Pavia and other guys completely collapsed the team and completely blew them out.
Pretty much beat them by like half a mile.
Yeah.
In yardage.
Yeah, and you guys, I don't think Texas eclipsed 200 yards of total offense, at least in the regular or in regulation. But once you got to overtime, I'd guarantee you nobody watched this part unless you're a Texas fan or a Kentucky fan. Kentucky was stopped at the goal line 4 times. They went for it on 4th down to go up a touchdown. So all that was needed from Texas was a field goal. Well, I think that drive, they went 3 plays, -3 yards, and then they just kicked the field goal. So it's like, yeah, you won, but your quarterback was 8 of 20 near the end of regulation, and then flip the next game or two, or it was either the week after the next one was Mississippi State. It's like everybody looked at the box score and said, holy crap, Arch Manning balled out. You know, Brandon Walker for the Barstool, like, ruined the game, running around the sideline like an idiot. And it's like, well, Mississippi State was ahead close to 3 possessions before the end of that game, late into the third quarter. So Texas had to really boogie, and if they lost to Mississippi State, that was it. And then, of course, a big-time win versus Vanderbilt and a big-time win versus Texas A&M. And, I'm not going to kid myself here. We're the underdog no matter what when we play Texas. And that's not a disclaimer. That's not a scapegoat. Look at the history, man. And I joke with you. This is a kind of good time to joke. I joke with you. I was like, if it's not 11-0, if it's not, when we're undefeated and having the best season we ever had, and we go on the road and we're favored to win, and we should go in there and do our business, because I told you I don't think the better team won in that game.
I agree.
I thought the A&M's offense was a complete shell of itself. I thought the offensive play calling was, and granted, you guys were dropping 7-8 players back almost every play. You guys were making Marcel Reed beat you guys, and it worked. And Marcel was throwing everything, line of scrimmage, beneath the line of scrimmage, freaking out, this, that, and the other. And the pocket was getting pressure. And the run game really worked for you guys. You got Arch Manning's legs working. But I was like, if it's not at 11-0, when we're at our best and we look like the top 3 team in the country, when can we beat you guys? It was so infuriating. And granted, it was a much better game than last year, like just in terms of entertainment. But it struck my pose again, where I'm just sitting there like this sucks.
Yeah, well, I do agree with you on that point. I mean, I made this point to you after the game too. Ohio State last year lost to a 7-5 Michigan and went on to win a national championship.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say about that. It's an eerily similar. It's a rivalry game. Obviously, ranks go out the window. Like, when it comes to a rivalry game, it's just something about it has changed the environment of the fans, the players, the coaches, the whole nine. So when that aspect happens, especially when you're playing at Texas, y'all have been, A&M's been playing off their freaking lights out, dude. I mean, going into LSU, being the breaks off then, causing Brian Kelly to be fired. Obviously, to go into Arkansas and just have to throw, 45 points so y'all could beat Arkansas. Yeah. I mean, and also obviously at home, beating South Carolina, just outscoring them 28-0 in the second half. So y'all have the potential to do it, but unfortunately, I think y'all just played not to lose, and it might have been a strategy by the Texas A&M. I could be a conspirator here, but y'all playing an extra game and possibly getting more players hurt, because obviously Marcel Reed got hurt a little bit earlier in that game as well. So if y'all had, obviously you don't have Moss, you don't have a lot of your dominant players that are out there. So if y'all were to play an extra game and lose all those players in the SEC championship and they're not ready for the playoffs, that could really put a dent onto everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great conspiracy too. And, and I'll counter that too or add to that, because in a way, when you watch the Michigan and Ohio State game, Ohio State's miles better than Michigan. But at the beginning of that game, Michigan made Ohio State look human. And that's what rivalry games do. You look offensively. Is A&M better than Texas? Yes. You look defensively. Is A&M better than Texas? Yes. Special teams. Is A&M better than Texas? Yes. Head coach, toss-up, probably Sark. I'd probably take Sark, but Elko's making a strong case. Like, matchup-wise, depth-wise, talent-wise, production-wise, A&M across the board was better than Texas all year. But then you get go into Austin, where they're 5-0, and you play in front of that crowd. And, of course, home and away is a much different environment in college football, and it matters. Like, rivalry game makes everybody human again. You want to make that into a hat. Rivalry games make everybody human again. And that's the entertainment aspect of it, because, you can watch a Virginia Tech game. It's like, oh, Virginia Tech's a very tough place to play. Like, that's why James Franklin took that job. Penn State rivalry game versus like Ohio State during the year. Like, when Penn State's good, that's a really tough matchup. So you can go down the list. It's like, dude, there's some matchups out there that make teams seem human. But like you said, we both think that 9-3 Texas and 3 losses isn't going to be good enough to get a ticket into the playoffs. But that's going to cause, there's things that we can get into it in the offseason, but there's things in college football that are going to go drastically over the top the next 2 seasons, such as declining to play non-conference games, or independence being valued over conference play, or how the conference championship contenders get in, such as Duke. Like, how is that even possible? Things like that. There's going to be an over-the-top drastic example that is going to force the hand of college football, in my opinion, to make a change. And another big one would be salary caps for NIL budget. I think Lane Kiffin's going to expose that at LSU. And we'll get
Agreed. And we can talk about contracts too, about players leaving NIL and stuff like that too. We can go down that rabbit hole another day.
Yeah. I think we're going to get into, there's a lot to talk about. I got to outline it for the off season, but there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, I'm all here.
Okay. So I'm not going to talk much about Vanderbilt and Utah and BYU. I think their resume speaks for themselves. Whatever the committee decides to do with them, it really doesn't affect me too much. I think the bigger questions here are Notre Dame and Miami, being the head-to-head. And I think the overall question to ask here is, do you value head-to-head matchups, whether it's beginning of the season, or I guess in this case at the beginning of the season, or do you value what team is better today on paper? Because obviously Notre Dame lost those 2 games early in the season, then they won 10 straight. You can argue whether those teams, I'm going to argue that, whether the teams were worth a crap or not. Miami played a conference schedule, beat Notre Dame non-conference at the beginning of the year, week 1, very tough environment. Yes, they had 2 non-ranked losses. They only have 1 ranked win, I believe, something crazy like that. But you look at the better team now, it could be, in some eyes, Notre Dame. But you can also say, well, Miami's been the same team all year. So how do you look at that when you evaluate Notre Dame and Miami?
It's hard to say because obviously Notre Dame has had, I guess, quote unquote, better losses than Miami has. Miami obviously had a really rough game against Louisville, and then a really rough game against SMU, where the SMU game looked like an overtime. They just kind of like gave up because obviously Peck threw that interception. That really just put a damper in their whole mood. Whereas Notre Dame, even though they have gone on a 10-0 run, who have they played? I mean, they played Navy. They beat Syracuse by like 60. They beat Stanford last week by like 40. I mean, and then their closest matchup after that point was what, Boston College?
Yeah, who's 1-10.
Yeah, exactly my point. And so it's hard for me to really justify Notre Dame having the edge over Miami when Miami has technically played teams with better records. Even though they're not ranked, they're better records. And I know their losses are worse, but technically the Pitt win obviously really helped them over the edge of that, because that's their only, I mean, that might be their only ranked win, but it's it's a more of a ranked win over freaking Notre Dame. Well, actually, Notre Dame also played Pitt, so never mind. They both were ranked at that point. So technically, they both had the same win that are big, but in a technicality, Miami wins that head-to-head. So I actually have a question with that. Uh-oh. Just knocked over a mic.
That sounds better right there.
Oh, God. Don't tell me that.
Yeah, no, with, like you're saying, they won, or like I would like to point out, they won the Florida Bowls, and they beat South Florida, they beat Florida, they beat Florida State. And then at the end of the year, they win their matchup versus Pittsburgh. And so these teams that others lost to, they took the loss to Louis. It's really residing around what Carson Beck does within the game. Like, and I know that's cliche to say because it does all revolve around the quarterback, but I'm talking about their loss. Their loss is accumulated when Carson Beck was playing like Flat Stanley, super flat, super unathletic, making stupid decisions. Like, dude, the Louisville game was a nightmare Friday night, throwing 4 interceptions. And now looking at it, Louisville's 7-5, excuse me, and SMU on the road, making those poor decisions in the red zone to win in the football game. Like, that's the only time Miami has lost a football game. And they played some similar opponents to Notre Dame, and that's because Notre Dame made an agreement with NBC to kind of partner with the ACC scheduling when they're picking their Power 4 teams. They just don't pick any of the good ones, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's just fine.
It's Notre Dame.
It's just Notre Dame. Those who bless Notre Dame will be blessed. So I had to wear like a little piece in the back of their head with a Notre Dame logo on it. So, anyway, so yeah, I think that kind of sums up that. It's like, if it were my take, I would say I would preferably like for them to battle it out again. But that's obviously not going to happen. But personally, I don't know if this is a shadow the script statement. Don't put either of them in the playoffs.
Oh, whoa. Who do you
Problem
put in
solved.
instead?
You put a guy like BYU or Vanderbilt in, because in my opinion, the ACC's kind of been on the way out. And yeah, Miami's had a good season. And I feel for you guys. The Hurricanes, I feel for you guys. You got me like a hurricane. Yeah, like I get it. But like you guys and the ACC, you guys got screwed last year with Cam Ward. Sorry. You guys got screwed last year with Cam Ward. You might get screwed with my take. You might get screwed this year with Carson Beck. But if we're going to have this whole debacle with, well, Notre Dame, well, Miami, well, the head-to-head, should it matter? Scrap them both. Get them out. And put Vanderbilt in, who, what are you going to argue there? They've won some powerful games. They've won versus Tennessee. I know they lost versus Texas, but they made it close at the end. Sure, you can make that case. They've beaten LSU. They've beaten these other guys, and so they played an SEC schedule. BYU's in the Big 12 championship. The Big 12 has looked pretty good this year with 3 or 4 teams. There's a couple 9-3 teams along there as well. Like BYU's kind of been screwed in the past. Like, is it their turn? And so I look at it that way. It's like if we're gonna bicker and fight about Notre Dame and Miami, you might as well just scrap the both of them. Say that Texas doesn't get in with 3 losses, and you throw Vanderbilt and Vanderbilt and BYU in there with the G5s and the ACC winner or whatever you want to do. So I don't know, but I don't think it's fair. There's going to be a big issue whether you let's say you just put Notre Dame in, you leave Miami out. That's a problem. You put Miami in, you leave Notre Dame out. That's a problem. Either way, you're going to make the wrong decision. So why not make the right decision and just doing away with both? And I know that sucks, but your rules have got to change then. That's another example where I'm saying there's got to be a drastic over-the-top occurrence to get this problem fixed. And maybe that's the way to do it.
Maybe.
Shadow the script. So, okay, jumping in. So I don't think we need to touch a ton because this is more a seeding issue we can get into when the selection process happens. But Texas A&M, Ole Miss, OU, Alabama, and Oregon are kind of all like mashed together in this one portion. And Alabama's the kicker, right? Where it's like, okay, if they win the SEC championship, they'll flip in front to get the first round bye. But those teams are playoff locks. If we're going by favorites, like Texas Tech, Georgia / Alabama. Alabama's always had their number, and then Indiana and Ohio State, whichever team wins that one. Wait, how does that work? Again, I might be tripping myself out. So if let's say Indiana beats Ohio State or vice versa, does the losing team lose the first round bye?
No, it's the top 4 ranked opponent, like AP poll
at
large. So technically, let's say Ohio State beats Indiana, are they really going to punish them that hard? I mean, I think they technically could move them around in the polling, but if you lose to number 1 and that's your only loss, they probably move them down to maybe like 3 or 4, but they still get that first round bye. Now, I think you can move it around. Let's say, obviously, Texas Tech is probably the number 4 and they lose to BYU. Oregon or whoever is behind them probably takes over that spot as the number 4 seed. So the only guaranteed thing is the highest 5 conference champions as according to the AP poll. They do not get the first round bye like they did last year. Because remember last year, all 4 of the conference champions lost with the first round bye. So obviously they were just like, well, obviously that didn't work. So put that out the window.
Yeah, I remember that. It was all of them.
Yeah, it was all of them. Now, granted, Georgia didn't have, Beck at that time, who was their starting quarterback. They had Stockton, who did play pretty well, but just didn't go in their favor. But it was just like, there's just so many things that I feel like they could do better. I mean, obviously that's something else we could talk about in the offseason, how they can improve the either 12 team playoff. Maybe they bump it up to 16. I think that's something that me and you have talked about, where you get rid of the first round bye, just do like 1 to 16, 2 to 15, 3 to 14, and just literally just ball it all out like the March Madness, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, we'll get into that too in the offseason as well, like and pose different questions and kind of putting out hypotheticals. Like, here's how it would look based on the 2025 season. How would we evaluate this? And so based on the college football playoff rules, like, I think if Indiana were to beat Ohio State, you would just flip the two, because you don't want to penalize Ohio State for playing an extra game in a conference championship. And then there's the argument, they do conference championships. Should they be a thing? Do they matter? And that's a question that, I tend to think you should keep them, but at the same time, we can't be punishing these teams for playing an extra game unless it's some outlier like the ACC or a semi outlier like the Big 12, where the team playing Texas Tech is in the poll 10th to 13th ish range most of the year. So if they were to lose that game for the second time that season, it's like, okay, how do you really? They're obviously not better than Texas Tech. So how do you? There's only like certain cases like that where a conference championship game should penalize a team. Other than that, like Alabama, if Alabama were to beat Georgia, it's like, okay, I don't know if we should put Georgia in the top 4. That's when you would see Oregon or Ole Miss kind of jump their way in there. But we'll encounter that when it happens. But
here's my question too. So now if BYU, since they're basically the first team out or / first team in, if they go in Big 12 championship and they lose, are they out?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, like you're saying, if BYU won the Big 12 championship,
no, if they lost the Big 12 championship,
I don't think you can put them in.
I would have to agree, because that just shows you can't beat a top caliber team.
Yeah. You can't beat a top caliber team in your own conference. So that would kind of tell the committee, okay, we had questions about BYU, and that's coming up, right? And
for sure,
and that's something you would look at and say, okay, that answers one question, but these guys are not playing a game this week, Miami, Utah, Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, and Texas. And you're like, well, what do you do with that? Because those are the ones where you can't really get a question. You just have to make an educated guess. But the conference championship will get you a better idea of how to align at least the first 10 teams, with the outliers being the group of 5 in Virginia. So, yeah, like if Texas were to, and flip that question, if Texas Tech were to lose to BYU, then you got to put two Big 12 teams inside of the conference championship or inside of the college football playoffs. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that 100%. But then you would also, the first team that's in would be the first team out, whether that be Notre Dame or Miami.
That's right.
Because obviously you got to make room for either the 2 group of 5 conference champions or Virginia and another group of 5, whether that scenario happens or not.
There's a lot of scenarios to play with.
I'm telling you, dude, this is where the chaos ensues, and this is why college football is my favorite over the NFL 1,000%.
I agree, and I think that wraps up the analysis of the SCS poll. And I will say this as we transition. This would be a great time to just say, hey, if you're still here and you're listening, make sure to if you're still here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. I'm sure if you like it, your friends will like it too. And we're making a goal to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. We're very, very close. We're 10 subscribers away from making it to 100. This is an independent platform. I haven't used any tools to grow this thing. I think I'm going to try and do some of that next year to incorporate some more viewership and get a larger audience. But now with 2 extra contributors being Turner and Chad, and the former contributors that are still doing their thing with us, Jacob and Ryan. There's going to be a fun format in season 4 to where we'll have multiple shows and operate like a network. So stick around, make sure to subscribe, follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then of course, and I'll shout out to you, Turner, on this one, because you were telling me, hey, you need to do these segments. You need to do these 3 to 5 minute things. These other guys do it. It's getting great views. A lot of people can't sit down and watch. We use YouTube, but a lot of people don't sit down for an hour and watch on YouTube. They like to sit for 3 to 5 minutes. catch the spotlight of what they would like to listen to. And that's just like listening to the episode. So the segments are great. They release every week, 3 to 5 minute clips spotlighting important topics of the episode. So make sure to subscribe, get to 100 before the end of the year. Can't stress it enough. Super grateful for the support so far. It'd be a big Christmas present to us here at the SCS Network, and a great welcome piece for Turner and Chad. So, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so they call me the accountant, just call me the marketing guy.
Yeah, exactly. Wacky inflatable tube man.
Wacky inflatable tube man.
All right, you ready for this one?
Let's get it.
This is the big one. Okay, there's a lot to cover here. We're going to go as carefully and as chaotically as we can, but this is the head coaching carousel. The head coaching carousel obviously is frontlined by Lane Kiffin. So let me paint a picture here. Lane Kiffin, last 6 years, really great run here at Ole Miss. Well, due to the college football calendar, and you've seen this with other teams within different conferences, a lot of SEC hires this year could have debatably been a down year for the SEC, if you want to call it that, for the teams that were the expectations were a lot larger. So they're making changes there. But the college football calendar, with signing day being literally in 2 days, if you're listening to this on a Tuesday, right, when it releases, so tomorrow on Wednesday is signing day. Transfer portal hits in like late December, early January, somewhere within that category. You got to get your staff together. You got to get your team together. You got to go out there and recruit. You got to get your budgets on the right page. And then you got to also figure out if their current coach, such as Summerall or Lane Kiffin, whether or not they can coach the rest of the season, or they're leaving outright and leaving a college football playoff team under duress. And so that was the whole debacle with Lane Kiffin is, hey, can I coach the rest of the season? I am taking the opportunity with LSU. We kind of all saw the forest for the trees there. There was a lot of speculation of, okay, he should stay because you can win anywhere now with the NIL budget. But I think, honestly, your dad actually made a great point when we were visiting in Brownwood, so shout out to Greg. He was saying that he's renegotiated his contract or had contract disputes with Ole Miss the past 3 seasons. So there's turmoil there. But in terms of, I'll let you kind of headline it your own here with Lane Kiffin, just with the move itself, like with the college football calendar in mind, with the college football playoffs being a thing and Ole Miss being a team and Tulane being a team, like how did you view, we were obviously tracking this really close. How did you view the Lane Kiffin departure to LSU? Do you think this is something that exposed a disloyalty to Ole Miss? Do you think this was in the best interest and out of the goodness of his heart from Lane Kiffin? Or historically, are we thinking that this is a classic Lane Kiffin, really bad ex-toxic breakup type scenario?
I think it's the latter. So here's why. So from my understanding, Lane Kiffin was the coach at Tennessee for a year. And then after that 1 year at Tennessee, he goes to USC. I think he was let go at USC at one point. I don't remember the deadline between those two, but I think at one point he was also the offensive coordinator at Alabama. While he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, and when they were making a run, he was interviewing to be the Florida Atlantic head coach. And then while he was being the Florida Atlantic head coach, I think they were about to go to conference championship, and he left to go to Ole Miss. And now here we are. They're about to make a college football playoff run, and now guess where? Now, granted, I'm pretty sure he said he wants to stay. This is all in basically the AD's hands because, they were supposed to have a player-only meeting. I believe that was around 1 o'clock, 9 a.m., one of the two.
Yeah, it was 9 a.m., then it got moved to 1 p.m. Everything keep getting delayed.
Keep getting delayed as the announcement was. Yeah, yikers, right? But he was talking about how he wanted to be at the players' meeting when he was talking to, I think it was Marty Smith or the reporter that was basically sitting there the entire time. His AD was basically like, hey, we don't want you here anymore. Get out. We don't want you here. Now, granted, kind of see why. You say hey, you got us our best school record ever, and now you're about to put us in a spot where we can't do this without you, and you're also going to pick a couple coaches with you. Yeah, no, get out. And so I see both sides of the argument. where I see where Lane Kiffin wants to stay. Like, hey, like it's not all the kids that also did it. I did it too. I pretty much got us to 11-1 and built this program and got us to where we needed to be. So I would like to coach college football playoff to see where we can go from here. But at the same time, I also see where Ole Miss is. It's like, well, dude, like you're basically putting us in a spot where now we have to hire the defensive coordinator. And I think that he just promote him. Now, I don't know if that was already in talks while all that was going on, but at the same time, he just, kicked the bed. But what's funny is, you notice how once Lane Kiffin got hired, that's when the plethora of all the other coaches got hired right after that.
Yeah.
Like Florida coach got hired, Arkansas coach got hired, Auburn coach got hired. Like all of them just got hired within a span of within hours of each other. And I think that's kind of funny to kind of see that in real time.
Yeah, it started the domino effect. And so, and I think you mentioned that, I don't know if it was in the works for the defensive coordinator to become the interim head coach for the playoff run.
He's not an interim. He's official hire.
I don't remember if it's I think it's like an official type hire.
I agree. I'm pretty sure it's an official hire. Because I think he was loyal before Lane Kiffin was at Ole Miss, if I remember correctly. I could be completely wrong. I could be botching that.
Well, I had it on X somewhere. I think I retweeted it. Let me see if I can find it right quick. But yeah, so official Pete Golding named head football coach at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's an official, hey, we're going to roll with this guy.
I remember seeing it at Ole Miss's Instagram. I think if they said official instead of just he's the interim, because I'm pretty sure that the wording would say interim if he had it on there, but it's an official hire.
Yeah, I think they're going to use him as the actual head coach. And so in saying that, I was actually researching what he historically is known for. And so, he's been a defensive coordinator pretty much all his career. He was at Alabama from 2018 to 2022. Talked about how he was key in 4 national titles from 2019 to 2022. His defense is ranked top 5 nationally in scoring. In 2025, this year, they're number 3 in SEC in passing defense, number 25 nationally, allowing 20.1 points per game. So kind of like a 180, a lot like Oklahoma. We used to see high scoring offense, no defense. And then when we entered the SEC, it was no offense, all defense. Well, with Ole Miss, they might take a turn because all those offensive recruits are probably going to follow Lane Kiffin to LSU. And so we might see a turn and say, okay, well, Pete Golding kind of coming from the Saban tree, coming from the Lane Kiffin tree, all this sort of thing. He actually might be a B+ hire for Ole Miss. This might not be a bad idea.
Might not be bad, but I think
not be as great.
Well, it's just because they're not on a technicality. The offensive players are not his recruits. If I would think so, right? Obviously, he probably got the defensive guy he wants, but the offensive guys like Chambliss, Lacey, all those guys. I mean, do they follow Lane, or do they go do their own thing? Now, another thing to consider too. Let's say they go ahead and do the college football playoff run, and the transfer portal opens up early January. What happens to those players? They're going to probably want to leave because this isn't the coach that recruited me. I want to go somewhere else. Either follow him or just go somewhere else. And so now you beg the question, do you take Ole Miss out of the college football playoff?
What I was going to pose. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. That's the one I've been thinking about it all weekend. And I've been kind of trialing myself on it. I was like, well, I don't want to see a team in the playoffs that lost their head coach, that's under duress, that has all this chaotic stuff happen. And granted, they have 2 weeks or so to kind of get things under wraps and to say, who's with me, guys, and go out into battle and play whoever they're scheduled to play. But they are, to me, no matter what, I think I settled on this, that they are a playoff lock. You have to keep them in. One thing to consider, though, and which is why I put Texas A&M in front of Ole Miss on the poll, is I would not have done that if Ole Miss didn't lose Lane Kiffin. And so Lane Kiffin is the play caller. Somebody told me that he wasn't. That's completely fabricated and false. He's the play caller. They wouldn't hire him unless he was.
Yeah.
Or unless he was not the play caller. And And so with that being said, like Lane proactively got them to where they are from a coaching standpoint. So with that, it's kind of just going to be a plug and play. Well, we use this playbook. We're not going to escape this playbook, but we're going to call these plays the best we can. But in terms of playoff seeding, I do think they're going to be affected. There's no way you can keep them at 5 or 4 or 6 or somewhere in there. I think you got to kick them back a little bit. I think, I understand there's some head-to-heads between Oklahoma and Ole Miss there, and Ole Miss won that head-to-head. But at the same time, like things have changed. You gotta go. We gotta roll with the punches here. You gotta make an audible. You gotta make a check the line. Something's gotta change. You gotta reward teams that are stable, and you gotta penalize teams that made a decision of that magnitude in such a critical portion of the season. But what do you think? Do you think Ole Miss should stay in, or do you think they should be kicked out?
Well, it's funny,
or however you want to say it.
Well, it's funny you bring up that point. I made it in my notes. I wanted to bring back a reference to 2 years ago before the college football playoff, the 12-team college football playoff. Do you remember where it was the 4-team playoff? We had the Big Ten champion, which was, oh God, that was Michigan.
Was it Michigan?
It was Michigan.
Is this the Max Duggan year?
I think so. Pac-12 champion was Washington. Big 12 champion was Texas. And then the SEC champion was Alabama. And then guess who the ACC champion that was?
Florida State.
You already know. But and there was a big controversy that came out that said, why is Florida State not in here when they're undefeated? Well, you had a big key person not be a part of the team anymore, a.k.a. Jordan Travis with that gruesome injury.
Yeah.
They had to take that into consideration. I mean, I have like the stats here. So obviously, Big Ten in 2023, Washington beats Oregon 34-31. Bama beats Georgia 27-24. Big 12, UT beats OU 49-21. Like these are like dominant teams and ranked teams that you pretty much had to recognize. And then Florida State, without Jordan Travis at that point in time, beat a 10-2 Louisville, which is still a good enough schedule, 16-6.
There was a big decline in production.
Yeah. Now, obviously, their defense, if I remember correctly, their defense was stellar. Like they had like every player that everything was connected. They just didn't have the quarterback play. And so what happened was they obviously booted them out. But what happened to Florida State after that? They played Georgia in the bowl game. And remember that game? They beat them by like 5+ TDs. Because a lot of the players either entered the transfer portal or they just decided to opt out and probably go to the draft. And so that's where kind of my argument is just like, well, what makes you think that's not going to happen with Ole Miss?
Yeah.
Like, what makes you think that hey, well, they deserve to be there 11-1. Think about the kids. I'm like, sorry, this is an entertainment industry. Like, business comes first. If you really think about it, we want to make sure that we have the best players or players/teams within the college football playoff. If you do not have a key component within your program, whether it be a coach or a leader like the quarterback, they're going to have to take that into consideration. Now, I kind of agree with you. Maybe you bring them down a couple seeds. I actually probably wouldn't be opposed to that. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't want to say take them out, but you kind of have to not punish them, but like be realistic and be like, hey, like this is not going to be the same Ole Miss team that we've seen all the way throughout the year. Barely like losing to Georgia and all those other teams. So it's something to think about.
And here's why. Like the difference is, people in the comments are probably saying, well, Ole Miss they didn't lose their quarterback. They just lost their head coach. And that does play a huge factor as well. Florida State at that time still had their head coach. But two things you can control, as all athletes know, when you played in high school, college, there's two things you can control at all times: attitude and effort. Mm-hmm. And when you lose your head coach that recruited you and you're no longer understanding who you're playing for or what you're playing for or how you're playing for it, there could be an attitude and effort problem when you're going into a matchup saying, well, we got here with Lane Kiffin. I've been here for 2-3 years. I was built by Lane Kiffin. Now, what am I supposed to go win it for Lane Kiffin, who'd left for LSU? I don't think so. That's a quote. Leave it up to the men? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. No, elite reference, the Incredibles there. But like, yeah, like if I'm an athlete too, like I actually can speak to this in a very small sense, in a very short story. But my senior year of high school, we got a brand new head coach. He was leading us into, you got all these recruits and all this sort of stuff. We were top tier team, made it to state that year. But here's the kicker. At the beginning of the year, the head coach mysteriously is fired. Nobody knows why. Gone. Poof. And then the defensive coordinator is promoted to head coach. And so we have to scramble things around, make a new playbook right before we play our first game. And so we ended up going 9-1 that season and made it to the state championship, but we lost the state championship. And so what these players have to understand is that we didn't rally around the coach. Did a phenomenal job. You know, he was a player's coach, this sort of stuff, but the players rallied around themselves. There was so much brotherhood and camaraderie and said, okay, over the offseason, we got put together. We were forced to get together in these weight training. We were responsible for, we had senior leaders saying we're responsible for every junior, sophomore, freshman to show up to weights at 6 a.m. in the morning. If we didn't, they were penalized. There's a brotherhood around it. So if I was going to encourage Ole Miss going into the playoffs here, don't play for Lane Kiffin. Don't play for Golding. Don't play for anybody else. Don't play for the committee. Play for yourselves. Play like you love the game. And with that sort of aspect, you can go out there and you can accomplish pretty much anything. You have the talent. It was the talent you guys executed on the football field. Go do it in the playoffs if they give you the opportunity. So that would be my leadership aspect. If I'm Pete Golding and say, you don't have to play for me. You don't have to play for me. I know you guys, some of you guys might leave. Make the most of it now, today, in 2025. Go out there and play your hearts out. Go show why Lane Kiffin recruited your ass.
Like Griffin.
And yeah, go show why Blake Griffin recruited. I mean, sorry. Yeah, then play Blake Griffin highlights. That'll get him motivated. But, you know, that's kind of like my motivational speech for Ole Miss is like from an athlete standpoint, play for the athlete, don't play for the coach. That guy next to you, he might not have been recruited by Lane Kiffin. He might have been there before. Well, that wouldn't make any sense. But you get what I'm saying.
I got it. I think
Kick some ass.
Yes, sir.
Stuff on the ass to get back out there. But okay, back to backtrack to Lane Kiffin. Then we'll get into some other SEC hires and just kind of highlight them. But to Lane Kiffin, you know, we didn't answer this question specifically, but like, what were your thoughts on him actually taking the job at LSU? Because geographically, there really is no competition within the state.
No.
I've spoken on previous podcasts saying that defensive players, in my opinion, this might not be 100% true. It's definitely not 100% true, but majority defensive players follow the brand. LSU has been known for safeties, defensive backs, especially wide receivers on the offensive side, but they've always had good defensive players. So that won't be an issue. And I think Saban influenced Lane Kiffin because Lane Kiffin talked about him. Say, hey, I don't have my dad here anymore. I'm going to consult Nick Saban and these other guys that mentored me and put me back on track with the rehabilitation program under the Saban tree. And I think Saban told him that LSU's capabilities, their budget, how the modern day college football looks, it's too hard to say no to. And it's going to look bad, but in terms of your personal image, but LSU, him historically from LSU to Alabama, right? And so I think defensive players follow the brand and offensive players are recruited by the coach or the coordinator, which Lane Kiffin is. So I think he's going to get the best of both worlds in a state that has no geographical competition. So you're obtaining all the Louisiana players, and then you get NIL, $25 million to $30 million a year bringing in. So with all that being said, and with Ole Miss, the track record he had over there, did you agree or disagree with like his move? Did you think it was like is disloyal of any way, or do you think he did the best job he could to save his own image?
Well, with all the moves that he's made, it's really all about his image, right? I mean, this is where my question to you comes in. Do you think at LSU he has the best chance to win a national championship?
I think LSU is primed. I think they're primed for greatness no matter if you get the right fit. I don't think Brian Kelly was the correct fit. I think Orgeron was actually like the people's favorite in that state, but when you pick somebody who's neighboring you in a state with Ole Miss and seeing that he's put 3 consecutive 10-win seasons together, and if you go study the financials, like LSU accumulates more of a budget. They have more capabilities in terms of growth and financial capabilities. So from that standpoint, I think he's going to do a lot better at LSU than what he did at Ole Miss. And it might not hit the ground running instantly, but in the modern era of college football, it is all about obtaining players via money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about who has the most money. And it's Kirby Smart talked about this. And there's a false truth in there where he's talking about, hey, you can pay all the players you want, but if you pay a bunch of players that are not good for the brand or for the culture for our organization, then what the hell are you paying players for? You paid players that were worthless. So we go after players that are for this culture, that are for this brand. Now, I think that's 60% true and 40% complete bullshit. But Lane Kiffin, on the other hand, same thing applies for him. I think he's going to go all out. He's going to take a lot of his Ole Miss guys with him. He's going to take people from around the country around with him. And he's going to reobtain, his daughter's boyfriend, Whit Weeks, most likely. And so with that being said, I think he's going to do better. He has a potential. It's not set in stone, but I think he has the potential to do much, much better and win a national championship. They were always there at Ole Miss, like in the conversation, but what have we talked about for the past 3 years? When they play a good team, they don't perform.
Yeah.
And they don't have the defense to do it. So maybe at LSU, he gets the defense. What do you think?
Before Brian Kelly, I'm pretty sure all the coaches that they have brought in, which would be like Les Miles, Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron, all those coaches won national championships at LSU. So 3 of the 4 coaches they have brought in have won a national championship. So, but granted, the era that they were doing it was completely different. I think with Brian Kelly, I don't think he still hasn't figured out the NIL stuff yet, because obviously it's still kind of new to everybody. But it sounds like with 11-1 season, with 11-1 season Ole Miss had, it sounds like Lane Kiffin's kind of got it under control. And from my understanding, he took his offensive coordinator, head strength and conditioning coach. I think he took like a general manager and then like a regional associate AD, which I would imagine those are titles to where just like, hey, here's the money they were managing. See how much we can get for this player, or what's the budget for this player? What's this player looking for? Like, this kind of gives them the idea of like, hey, how much money can I actually spend, and where can I put this money to get this player, or maybe I can go get this coach for this amount of salary here. Like, obviously, head coaches got to think about salary too. Like,
yeah,
I mean, obviously, he's going to be paid $90 million for 7 years.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, hey, I think I'm good on money. I'll figure out how to use the rest of this money that they're about to give me for NIL. So do I think he could? I personally think, is it a good move to win the national championship? Yes. Do I think it's a good move as in, is it good morally? Not really. But, at the end of the day, sometimes, hey, man, money talks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Ole Miss was going to offer them the same amount of money if the reports were true. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but if he wants to win a national championship, I think it's Ole Miss. So I think it was a good move.
Yeah, and that's a good point you brought up. And we'll incorporate. I want to incorporate Chad's thoughts here, and we can kind of counteract. So this is Chad Aune, new contributor here. SFA player for 5 years at tight end. Played what is the bowl between Sam Houston and SFA? It's
Battle of the Piney Woods. Mm-hmm.
Battle of the Piney Woods. So he has a notorious trucking clip on there, which I used to troll my brother Ryan on. It's a little rivalry aspect there, but he's also a Texas fan. But we were talking about this at Brownman. I was like, just give me your take on it, and we'll incorporate it. So he was very adamant about allowing Lane Kiffin to coach the remainder of the season. So here's his take. He said, I think it was a big move for Lane to go to LSU from Ole Miss. What I think is ridiculous is the fact that they wouldn't let him finish out the season with their playoff berth, especially it being their first in program history. Now, when it comes to handling the situation, he did a piss poor job. I don't think he needed that many weeks to figure out what to do. I think 7 days could have been good and give everyone enough time to figure things out, talk to the team, and even have a better chance of convincing Ole Miss to let him coach the rest of the season. And so that kind of poses the question. did you think that they made the wrong decision in not allowing Lane Kiffin to coach the remainder of the college football playoffs? Or do you think that, and we kind of spoke about it earlier, but, or did you think like, hey, like, get out, yeah. And I will say this, Scott Van Pelt I don't like ESPN. We debunked the mainstream media around here. But he made a good analogy. I know he was given this analogy from some smart nerd in the cubicle, but he was basically saying like, hey, this is like my wife was seeing our neighbor. And so while they were seeing each other for Christmas, they want to split the time. They want to say, hey, I want to go over to the neighbor's house for Christmas and you go do something else. And he's saying, no, screw that. Like, you go over the Christmas. I want to finish out the Christmas season with you at this house instead of before I move completely over to the neighbor's house for 2026. And it's like, go to the neighbor's house and spend Christmas with them if you love them so much. Like, you're not going to be in my house any longer. And so I think that's a great analogy. It sucks that it came from ESPN, but shout out Scott Van Pelt, SVP.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of what it was like, and saying like, hey, would you, if you were the AD in that situation, and that's putting you on a big spot, but like if you were the AD in that situation, you had the first playoff berth that Lane Kiffin orchestrated the past 6 years, 3 consecutive 10-win seasons, what would you have done in that difficult spot without any AD experience, obviously? But
no, for sure. I think when you're in that position, you got to think about the kids. I think you got to put ego aside. And a lot of times you got to take the bullet. It's like, is it what I want to do? No. Realistically, I want to tell this guy to go screw himself and then, hope he doesn't do great. I mean, that sounds mean, but like, that's just kind of what I think. But at the end of the day, it's just like, you got to be the bigger man of the situation and be like, hey, look, this is a historic moment for not only for our kids, but for, our university. Like, this is something that, like, if we do win the national championship, is it suck that his name's going to be attached to it? Yes. But at the same time, it's still going to bring in, like, it's still going to bring in recruits. It's still going to bring in the money. Like, it's still going to, like, bring all the marketing. Like, there's a bigger picture to this whole thing. So realistically, I would have bit the bullet. I would say, don't call me, don't text me, but you can still coach for the remainder of the year. I would be bitter, but I would think like, hey, you need to do this if you don't do this for the right reasons, I will kick you out and I will find out a way to do it. But for the long run, it's about the kids.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think if I was in that particular situation, I would look at it and say, yes, this is the first time in program history that we made a college football playoff. We've always been kind of a mediocre program, 8-4, 7-5. We had some good athletes come in and out of here within the SEC, but Lane Kiffin put us on the map. And so now that we're finally here, he decides to go leave for essentially more money, better geographical recruiting, larger NIL budget, which, behind closed doors, we're not sure if those discussions happened within the past 3 years, but, it's like, okay, let's say that did happen. Okay, Lane's argued with me over the past 3 years that he needs like Moneyball, and I need more money to pay these players. Like I can't leave with that. I can't leave with, you telling me I got to get rid of Giambi. Like I can't, I need more money. If you want me to win, you brought me here to win. In order to win, this needs to happen because it's the wild, wild west out there. And so the AD was sitting there saying, we don't have the funds. I can't, we're a medium market team in the SEC. Like you can get to the tip top, but then you have to coach your way out of the rest. And so with Lane Kiffin making the decision to go to LSU as the AD, I would have said, boy, I'd really like for you to coach the rest of the season. I understand why you're making the decision we've made because we've had those discussions over the past 3 years, but I can't allow you to coach. And I want the image. I want there to be respect. I want the image to be clear and respectful. But at the same time, I know you want to owe it to these kids, but you can't do it. And logistically, we can't allow you to do that. But I would, at the same time, I would want him to finish out the year. Like, so just saying that, I'm saying I want, but what I want is different from what I have to do, what I'm required to do. So I think they were required to say, go to LSU, take your guys. We got it from here. This sucks. This is a shit hand. But at the same time, I got to do this. And I care about you. We've been together for 6 years, but it's time we part ways. So
I want to shake your hand.
Exactly. So, okay. Do we want to talk? I don't know if we want to really talk about, like, there's not a whole lot with the remainder of the SEC coaches. I think we need to call a NASCAR here and get to the conference championship predictions. But I think in later in December we'll get into the SEC hires, but just to kind of outline them, Ole Miss, officially hiring Pete Golding, obviously Lane Kiffin to LSU. Florida hired Tulane's head coach John Summerall, coming from Troy, winning two Sun Belt championships. He was 17-0 in conference play, 19-7 at Tulane over the past 2 seasons. So 6-2 versus ranked teams, and he has Louisiana ties, so kind of a neighbor to Florida geographically. Auburn went with Alex Galesh, the head coach for South Florida, with an 18-9 record over the past 2 seasons. He was previously the Tennessee offensive coordinator from 2021 to 2022 and led the number 1 offense nationally in 2022 with 46.1 points per game. So he's going to be a high-flying, hopefully what Auburn has been lacking over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, good Lord.
Additionally, Arkansas hired Ryan Silverfield, the head coach out of Memphis. So a lot of G5 hires here, 50-24 with Memphis, 10-plus wins in 2023 and 2024, went 8-4 this season. He had AAC titles in 2021 and 2023, won the game versus Arkansas this year, but no prior Power 4 experience from what I'm reading here. But he's 7-3 versus ranked Group 5 teams, and so I think it's a pretty decent hires all the way around. I didn't really disagree with a lot of them, but Jacob told me off the record, he was like, of course Arkansas would get like the 7th to 10th best head coach candidate on the list.
That's the drama I've been seeing too, that they were like, do they even care about the football program anymore? This is just about basketball and baseball at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think we should get into that later in the year. But I didn't disagree with really any of the hires. I thought they were all pretty entertaining and exciting to get into. Okay. Championship weekend predictions. So, we're not going to cover the Sun Belt. We're not going to cover the Mountain West. Like, nobody's watched those teams. We're going to be covering the big kahunas. So
the teams that matter.
With that being said, you've got quite the list here. And we'll start with your boys. We'll start with the Mean Green, UNT versus Tulane, 8 p.m. The AP ranks number 20, North Texas at number 21, Tulane. I think that's on purpose. That's what I would have done. I didn't do that, but that's what I would have done. Tulane is hosting this for the American Athletic Championship, and then North Texas is the favorite, minus 150 on the money line, and favored 3.5 points. So, with that being said, with a 0-star quarterback, with a great head coach this year, what are you thinking?
I think with
because we didn't watch all these games.
No, I watched the USF game and with UNT versus USF, and they could not stop that quarterback. They were, if you saw the size comparison for the defense compared to the USF quarterback by itself, it looked like a men amongst boys. It was kind of funny to watch. Now, granted, their defense is actually not half bad. The offense is really high scoring and really keeping them in these games. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think both teams are pretty prominent in actually scoring a lot of points on both sides of the ball. I gotta go with my gut and go with my heart. I gotta go UNT. I think I'm gonna go for the over. I'm gonna say 42-38 UNT.
I like that because I'm on a similar pathway, saying that I think it's going to be a lot like what we saw on a Friday night. I think it was Memphis and Tulane, where it was kind of a shootout. We've seen a shootout between North Texas and South Florida. Granted, South Florida scored like 60-plus points in that matchup.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
Yeah, and it was like that was the game where like everybody was super excited for the home game.
Oh, dude, it was. I'm pretty sure it sold out. I think that was the first time in school history.
Yeah. And then that was the performance. So that sucks. But going into this game versus Tulane, John Summerall kind of out the door. I'm going to favor North Texas in this one like Vegas does. I'm not sure that they cover, though. I think Tulane's a good enough good enough union. I think North Texas wins this game 34-31, and wins the AAC conference and perhaps get a playoff ticket to the college football playoffs. So, all right, both of us taking North Texas this weekend. That's the Friday game. JMU plays Troy. If you're just curious, JMU plays Troy on Friday at 7 p.m. So 2 games will be simultaneous, multi-screens attached, beer in hand, meat on the smoker.
Which meat?
Meeting adjourned.
Never mind.
I heard that.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, Big 12, baby. Let's go. Saturday, BYU versus Texas Tech at noon. This is a number 11 BYU versus number 5 Texas Tech in terms of ranking. This is at AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Texas Tech is a 13.5 favorite. Whoosh.
Yikes.
Yikers. Okay. Okay. We've seen this dance before.
We have.
Granted. Here's a couple of neutral cookies we gotta bring up. It was on the road for BYU, so a home game for Texas Tech. It was kind of like a homecoming for Texas Tech because Patrick Mahomes was the guest speaker. It was college game day, sold out fans. Jacob Rodriguez, a Heisman candidate. So all these factors kind of played into against BYU's hand. Now we get it on a neutral site. And so with that being said, and I guess I'll go ahead and throw my take out there. I don't think Texas Tech covers. I think they win. I think the ending score of this one's going to be 28-24 Texas Tech. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think Texas Tech controls the outcome of the game for the most part, but then BYU kind of climbs their way back. And again, the key to success, in my opinion, for BYU to beat Texas Tech is to keep Texas Tech, minimize their possessions, continue to methodically drive down the field, keep the ball away from them as much as you can, and establish some sort of a run game. I believe their running back had a phenomenal game this past weekend. That's just versus UCF. You got a freshman quarterback, get a young guy in there, take the responsibility away from the freshman quarterback and put it on the rest of the team. Put it on the front 5, the 11 guys that are on there, and find a way to shake things up. But limit Texas Tech's possessions. 28-24, Texas Tech.
Okay. I respect that. Realistically, I know
they put belt to ass, aren't they?
Yeah. Look, I love you, buddy, but gosh dang, do you have like the tendency of just saying the opposite thing that happens? I mean, it's
that's true.
We have historical data showing that you say everything happens the opposite of what you say. But
yes,
as an accountant, we always do everything based on historical data. And what we see is that there is only 7 plays. I think it was only 7 plays that occurred in Texas Tech territory the last time these two teams played. And so that shows how dominant that team was or Texas Tech's defense was against BYU. And I think that's going to be the outlier again in this game. I think Texas Tech offense struggles a little bit more this time too, because I don't think Morton's really all that, in my personal opinion. So I'm going to go the under, but like just barely. I think they don't meet I think go 13. I'm going to say 14-27 Texas Tech.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think they just score. I think they go 2 field goals, and then they really just I feel like both teams can't really do much on offense, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and there was a lot of missed points in the field that Texas Tech left over in that first game as well.
Very much so, especially in the red zone.
I think if Texas Tech puts it all together, this is like worst case scenario. This is like demon time. I think Texas Tech could win 49-28 and just blow them out of the water. I think that's worst case scenario where you're like, oh God.
They had the potential 100%, but they just
incorporates with both of our predictions.
Agreed. 100%.
Like we're accounting for minimized possessions and maybe Morton not playing up to standard. But if that defense gets churning and Morton plays up to expectation,
it could be
you
like
have yourself a blowout.
Yeah, you could have yourself literally like you might as well just turn off your TV and go to the next game.
And then the Mormons can finally shut up. So, all right. SEC Championship College game day is going there. This is a 4 p.m. game, so Number 3, Georgia versus number 10, Alabama on the AP poll. They're at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia is a slight favorite in this one. Bama is a point plus 1.5 underdog. So we all know that historically Bama has had Georgia's number, whether it's been Saban, whether it's been Kalen DeBoer. Ty Simpson has been one of the prolific quarterbacks in the SEC and in the nation throughout this season. Gunnar Stockton has really had to come up, and they've been a very, very resilient football team, especially late in the second half. Once they're kind of like A&M in a sense that once they get to the locker room, a lot of things change for the better outside of like one game, which happened to be Alabama and which happened to be Texas for the Aggies. So, Gunnar Stockton leading the charge there. You got a defense that got after Arch Manning in a primetime game. Both these teams have been to these situations before. Kalen DeBoer has not been in this situation before, so that'll be interesting to see. Kirby Smart's been there. So with all those things being said, what do you got?
I mean, Kalen DeBoer has been in the situation, just not with this team. They were like that with the national championship. They were like that in the Pac-12 championship 2 years ago. So obviously he has the experience of a championship caliber team. And I think this team has the potential, but we saw some flaws here when they were playing against Auburn that they can get stuff rolling on offense, but for some reason they'll get to like midfield and they'll just shut down. And I don't know why that keeps happening or what happens. Like Ty Simpson will still throw for over 300 yards, but he doesn't have the touchdowns or anything else to prove behind it. And then, the thing with Georgia is that they always play to the level of the team they always play against. We saw that against Georgia Tech. We saw that against Ole Miss. I mean, literally no defense was played against the Ole Miss game. But the offense, showed out to get them that win. And then with the Georgia Tech game, no offense was played, but the defense was able to get them shut out to get that win.
Yeah.
So I think they always say it's always hard to beat a team twice. So I'm going to have to go with Georgia, and I'm going to go 34-31 Georgia.
Oh. See, I like that prediction. And what's crazy is for me, Ryan Williams, the zesty wide receiver for the Crimson Tide, like that dude had 0 targets against Auburn.
Yeah. How do you do that?
I don't know. In order to get, and it might be a him thing, but in order to get this offense in a production state to be the best version of themselves, I think they got to find a way to incorporate Ryan Williams. And does Georgia have the defensive backs to lock that down? Historically, this year, not necessarily. I don't remember what the stat line that Ryan Williams had against Georgia in their first game was, but historically, Georgia has allowed points. And so I think in a game like this, those points seem to reduce themselves, which is why I think Vegas has the line where it's at. I personally think that Alabama makes a case that they're one of the best teams in the nation. And I understand that they had that goose egg at the beginning of the year versus Florida State, and we talked about it earlier in the episode. It's kind of about a team. Where are you at now? Where are you at today? And so there are teams that historically that they peak towards the middle of the season, and then you hit this like decline, and then you go rapidly up at the same time. And it's all about when it strikes. Will it strike at the right moment, or will it not? And we'll see. But I tend to believe that they're going to strike at the right moment. I think they've been on a decline these past 2-3 weeks to where they're not playing their best football, but they've been kind of just aging themselves fine like wine until they get to the Georgia Bulldogs and they go, all right, well, now it's time to strap up and go. We didn't think we were going to get this opportunity. We thought Texas A&M or Ole Miss or somebody else was going to find their way. We had a semi-chance to get in this SEC championship. Let's not blow it. Ty Simpson's a stud. We beat him last time. We can beat him again. So I think Alabama goes in there and they win a defensive ball game 23-20 defeating Georgia.
Okay. I like it.
I'm wrong, aren't I? No.
Everybody, whatever you do, just do the opposite of what Jared says.
If you're a betting man, don't bet on what Jared says. He goes with the underdog every time. Okay, so now, before we get to the next game, I was an idiot. Chad made predictions. Chad Aune, a new contributor, we talked about it earlier in the episode. If you skipped ahead, If you're listening to a segment, this turns into a segment clip. This is Chad Aune's prediction. So we're going to go back to the JMU game. JMU versus Troy in the Sun Belt Conference. JMU wins that game 35-28. So Sun Belt winners 12-1. JMU playing an extra game, winning 12 of the 13 games. North Texas versus Tulane. North Texas is going to win that football game 42-31 versus Tulane. John Summerall out the door, 0-star quarterback, turned into a 5-star. Hello LSU next year. Texas Tech versus BYU. Texas Tech, a lot like your prediction, Turner, is going to be 28-14 Texas Tech. They're going to be covering, according to the Vegas line, at 13.5, just barely, winning at a neutral site at the AT&T Stadium. Tend to probably get more fans than BYU being in Dallas. That's just down the road. If you watch Landman, you go down to Fort Worth. And then Georgia versus Alabama. Here's the big one. Oh my gosh, you guys are copying one another. Alabama winning 34-31.
Hey, I said
the team's flipped.
I was about to say, like, hey, hold up now.
So one of you guys is missing a field goal in here. So whichever one of you guys is right, the other team made that extra field goal.
All I know is with that Excel sheet, I want to beat his ass.
And that's what on the introduction image, the graphic, I was like, he's a leading matchup predictor behind the scenes, and that's what we're alluding to is our college football pick'ems every week. We pick 10 teams and pick the confidence scale. And Turner's second, I'm third, and Chad's first. So little fucker. So. All right, moving on to the Big Ten Championship. Indiana versus Ohio State, number 2 versus number 1. Both undefeated teams, both Heisman candidates coming into this game. Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin. You got Jeremiah Smith out there. You got, I think it's something Hasty, I think was the running back's name for Indiana. But Kurt Signetti versus Ryan Day. Matt Patricia, defensive coordinating for the Buckeyes. Buckeyes playing in the snow versus Ohio State. Or sorry, not versus Michigan and that in Ann Arbor. God, I'm having word fumbles. But with that being said, I think these are the teams. Annoyingly, they have not played each other this year, and that's a topic for another time. But in the Big Ten, where it's you go to the West Coast, you go to the East Coast, you go down south, you go to the Midwest. It's like, where does the Big Ten reside? Well, obviously on the schedule, it doesn't reside with Indiana and Ohio State playing one another. So this will be the first time they're matched up. With that being said, I'll give you first go at it. Your predictions for 12-0 Indiana versus 12-0 Ohio State, number 1 versus number 2.
Ooh, it's tough. I mean, you think about the game. Tough. I mean, Indiana had a very good prominent win against at Oregon. They won like 30-20, I believe. Then you got Ohio State, which I feel like is probably one of the most fraudulent number 1 teams. I mean, that's a shout out to the Scrib take that you can say they're probably one of the most fraudulent because I know they were the last year's, national champion. You kind of have to reward that. But at the same time, they have the same argument that A&M has had, this year, but nobody's talking about it. They're like, oh, well, who's Ohio State played this entire year? You know what I'm saying? Like A&M played Notre Dame, and then you can say like, oh, but A&M has played the bottom tier of the SEC. Okay, well, like you could probably just say the same thing about Ohio State. I mean, you brought up a point like, hey, dude, they rested their starters in a conference game.
Yeah.
And like, dude, who does that? Like that debunks the whole argument between the SEC versus the Big Ten. And the SEC, you can't do that. You just saw that. I mean, like I said, in Auburn. The SEC, in Auburn, SEC, like South Carolina, when A&M. South Carolina went into A&M and almost beat the brakes off them. Like, Florida beating Texas. Like, there's just so many things that happens in the SEC that causes turmoil to where you cannot rest your starters unless you have a comfortable lead. But that's rarely going to happen a lot of times because you just never know what happens. But I'm getting besides the point there. It should be about Indiana or Ohio State. I think also this game is a big one too because this will determine who the Heisman winner will be, in my personal opinion. Yeah. I mean, obviously you have favorites like Jeremiah Love, you have Rodriguez down in Texas Tech, you have numbnuts of Vanderbilt. I don't like that very much, but
numbnuts.
I'm just saying,
Tingus Pingus over there in Vanderbilt.
Yeah. guy that's my age over there, yeah, he makes more money than me, annoyingly enough.
You got Tinkerbell in Tennessee over there.
Yeah,
Vanderbilt.
bumfuck over here in Alabama. It's tough. I think I'm gonna have to go defense here, and I think Ohio State's defense has really shown out in every single game that they have played, especially with Matt Patricia at the helm. I'm gonna have to go Ohio State. I think I'm gonna take Ohio State, win by 10. Final score, I want to say 31-21.
Ooh. So, yeah, I think, like you're saying, Ohio State's biggest opponents, being Texas at the beginning of the year, Illinois, Washington, and Michigan at the end of the year. Yeah. Tumbleweed blows through. You're like, what? There's state your business or get winged. Like, who are you gonna draw against who can be better than me? You're like that dude in the town in Old Western that beats everybody until some dude from a different conference comes over and you're like, who's this guy? I've never seen him. I've seen the shooters around these parts. Who are you? And then this one guy comes in and beats him. Buster Scruggs, beats Buster Scruggs. And it's obviously that's not the case yet with Indiana being in the same conference, but this is a different team than what you saw last year with Indiana, with Curt Cignetti, pissed off when he's up 45 points in the fourth quarter versus UCLA. And so I think with the way that Fernando Mendoza has played against premium brands and tough opponents this year, which is kind of lukewarm. It's kind of lethargic in a way. It doesn't really pop out on the paper from what I've seen. A lot of low 200s. And, those are good teams. It's tough to compete against those, but other quarterbacks have produced in those scenarios. So I think Matt Patricia is going to have an NFL-type game plan for Fernando Mendoza. And Julian Sayin, what I've noticed from their offense is that they don't put practically any pressure on Julian Sayin. So the key to victory for Indiana is to put him in that predicament, to say, and I said this all the way back in week 4, Julian Sayin has to win the game at some point. He has to be the guy that goes in there and say, Julian Sayin's the main reason why they won that game. He can't rely on the rest of the team the entire time. So I think this is a game where we're going to see, can Julian Sayin do that? Can he be the main catalyst in helping the Buckeyes win this football game? With that being said, I do think they get this victory, but I don't think the day for Indiana is today. I think Ohio State wins this game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring ball game again. I think that these defenses are going to get after one another. It's going to be a game of trenches, who can control the line of scrimmage. So I think, I believe Ohio State, the Buckeyes, are going to win this one 24-20. And Indiana it's going to come down to most likely who's going to have the ball last, and if they're in field goal range to tie the game or extend the lead or to usurp that lead if they're down 2 or something like that. But yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win this football game. But I don't think I'm going to knock Indiana for it. I think they're going to lose close.
Mm-hmm. I would have to agree.
And then in saying that, Chad's prediction here for the Indiana versus Ohio State game, he's believing that Curt Cignetti, Fernando Mendoza, and Indiana win this football game 28-24.
Whoa.
Yeah, so go Hoosiers for old Chadwick.
I got to beat him this week, man. I swear, I got to beat him this week. I got
a little insider trading.
Yeah, no, I got to see what he knows. Be like, hey, man, what do you know, brother?
Do we make those picks public, or what are we doing now that we're all on the same network?
Well, technically, ours are already public. His will definitely actually, all of ours are public, so we'll kind of see how this goes from there. The turmoil that'll come at, in the comment section.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, this will be a quick one. ACC Championship, 7-5 Duke versus Virginia. Who cares the time? Who cares the place? What do you got?
I want to say Virginia, but I swear if Duke somehow pulls this off and knocks the ACC out of contention for the college football playoff, I will laugh my ass off. And I will just be like, chaos! Just literally just screaming from the rooftops. It's going to be so great. I would say Virginia. I think it's be low scoring, maybe 20-17, Virginia.
Oof.
I just think
throw up.
It's just like, I don't think Virginia has had prominent wins. I think they had one against Virginia Tech last week, but all the other games that they have played have been close. I think you mentioned that earlier in the podcast. And Duke, obviously, they're 7-5. Like, I think they're gonna probably bring something up to where they're gonna have some life within this game and bring something out that Virginia's not expecting. But I just, at the end of the day, I think Virginia wins. It's gonna be close and it's gonna be ugly, unfortunately. So we'll see if I even watch that game. But we'll see.
I believe that factor. I believe it's going to be close and it's going to be ugly. Virginia throughout this season has found itself just trying to lose the football game.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that be because there was an injury in the second half to their quarterback that was undisclosed, returned the next week and things kind of went back to normal, but you accumulated a loss versus Wake Forest 9-16. You almost lost to Washington State 22-20. I mean, you could be an advocate for how they finish football games from that standpoint, but all that says to me is that Duke can win this football game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to go for clicks here. I'm not necessarily favoring myself and saying Duke is going to win this game, but it's going to be close in my opinion. I think it's going to be like 1 or 2 points come down to a field goal from Duke, and it's going to go like wide right 30 yards or something and just be like, oh my God, Duke was this close to destroying college football. And so with all that being said, you know, the basketball team turned all of a sudden football championship contending team. The coach probably found out, like when they got to the ACC championship, he was like, what, excuse me, where?
He was probably drinking a pina colada and just...
Yeah, he's like, season's over. When's our bowl game? Well, we're in the ACC championship. You're shitting me.
You're shitting me. SMU lost?
What? Yeah. So I think he's a bit shocked, and he's like, oh, I got to come up with a game plan, I guess. And, you know, I'm sure he was sitting there reading it, but I think it's going to be close. It's going to be nasty like you're talking about. I think I'm saying 21-19.
That's even closer than what my prediction was.
21-19 Virginia. Duke misses a field goal to lose it. And then Chad on the other side has Virginia winning in a blowout 35-21. And so being 14 points up ahead, 2 possessions ahead of Duke, which I think that's totally fair.
I think it's fair.
I think it's totally fair. I think Virginia's the better football team here, but
by record.
And they've won by 17 in the past this year head to head, but like you said, it's tough to beat a team twice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
We got a wild weekend ahead of us, man. I'm so looking forward to it.
I know. I will say this. We just concluded everything that we have on topics. Brother, we did a fantastic job covering all that.
Dude, I think
phenomenal job.
I think with the time frame that we had and the topics that we had, I think we brought up a lot of the points that we've already discussed this past weekend. I think we did it in an efficient way. I think we did it in like a timely manner too. Like I think we did great for my first go around.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, props to you. Yeah. Do I even have this? I want to see if I have this thing.
Do you have a soundboard?
I do.
Oh my God!
Here
please.
we go. All right, yeah, you ready? Good job, Chad. Or good job, Chad and Turner. Good job.
That is legendary. That's a great way to end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
Oh my God. It's like those fans in College Football 25. They're just going absolutely nuts. Yeah.
It's like, I've seen that fan wear that same shirt.
Yeah. That's my dad in the stand.
Oh my God.
So that's everything. So props to you. You know, like I said, round of applause. Like that was a great episode. Again, we'll bring up again. Road to 100 subscribers. If you've made it this far in the episode, thank you for tuning in and for staying towards the end. We hope you enjoyed the STS network on the championship week analysis and the poll analysis and reactions to last week. So it's going to get dicey these next 3 weeks. And so we're going to need all the help we can get, which is why I brought in reinforcements to help cover this from today and beyond. But yeah, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers before the end of the year as a Christmas present to us here at the STS Network. We say Merry Christmas on this podcast because my collar's blue and my neck is red. Yeah, who cares? But I do say Merry Christmas.
I say it too. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, so I don't know what other holidays we're celebrating.
Screw you, corporate America.
Yeah, I've been a slave to your corporate America for 3 years now, and I've had it.
That being said, I need my check next week.
Yeah, that means please pay me. So you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and X, searching the handle at Shadow the Script. And then on top of that, you can listen or watch on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Again, Turner, thanks for joining. Great episode. And we will see everybody next week. Good luck to all the championship teams. Good luck to Lane Kiffin and LSU. And let's get things rolling. Now, this would be a great opportunity to say, I always say Giga Maggies, but Giga Maggies and like 'em Horms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you already see it.
Hell yeah. All right. Y'all have a good rest of y'all's week. Thanks for tuning in.
You're